Good morning and welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and I can see that thing falling again. We're going to take a quick second here. We're going to make a tiny little adjustment. And there we go. If you weren't with us a couple of Fridays ago, suddenly my camera fell right in the middle of the broadcast. So I wanted to fix it this morning. Appreciate you joining us today. If you're watching us live, thank you for that. If you're watching the show later, we do upload these to www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. There are audio and video versions there for you to watch at your leisure. I know people like to watch this show, even though it's a morning show. Some people watch it in the evening. They watch it over lunch. Whatever floats your boat. Of course, they are free. So again, thanks for joining us. Let's roll into the traffic. Looks like folks are moving a little slow today. Very cold out there. It's currently 31 degrees. Traffic is very heavy and intermittent from the 10-12 split on I-12 westbound all the way back to Jubin. So it's going to be one of those fake out days where you're going to get going and stop, get going and stop, get going and stop. So prepare for that commute. There are delays on 16 in front of Denham Springs High School as well as Hatchell Lane in Denham Springs. There are delays on 16 coming out of Watson as folks drop their kids off at school. And, of course, delays on Burgess off of Highway 447. There's also minor delays on 64 heading into Central, starting to stack up at 190 and Jubin Road. So keep an eye on all of those places. 62 degrees is your high today. As mentioned, it's currently 31. So it's going to double in temperature by this afternoon, and then it's going to drop back to about 42 overnight. So not as cold as it was last night, but it will be pretty chilly out there. The DOTD, which is the Department of Transportation Development, as well as the Corps of Engineers, told the Comite River Task Force that they are still on track for construction of the Comite Diversion Canal. That's a surprising statement for a lot of folks who have been watching the progression, following all of this saga, I guess you can say. And for 3 decades, it was on again, off again. Now it's very much moving on. And in about 18 months, they are looking at completion, second quarter of 2021, so in about a year and a half. Parcels and land acquisition are still kind of the main focus, waiting for appraisals on the final packages of land before they can make those acquisitions final. However, it's a good feeling, I guess you can say. Folks in Livingston Parish have been paying a tax towards things of this nature for a while. The Fed stepped in, especially with the help of Congressman Garrett Graves, as well as local Representative Valerie Hodges, who heads the Comite Diversion Task Force. They also got a report on the Darlington. We will be talking about that in a full-blown podcast this week, as well as on the morning show on Thursday. That is the focal point of Thursday's paper, is the discussion on the Darlington Reservoir, which they might be looking at next, might be cost prohibitive. We will see. However, again, the Comite is on track, as reported right there at the beginning of November. Will be ready, as long as there are no crazy factors coming up, will be ready sometime second quarter of 2021. Now, of course, they're building it now in sections, just in case there's a problem in one section, they don't have to stop building other sections. Right now, still doing utilities and right-of-way, that sort of thing. So still working through some of the preamble, but there is dirt moving in some places. So what is a drainage impact? We're kind of switching gears here, coming back real local to Livingston Parish. We talked about traffic impact studies yesterday. Today we're talking about drainage impact. These are the 2 impact studies that any subdivision must go through in order to pass muster with the parish. It is part of their code of ordinances. That'd be chapter 125 for both drainage impact and traffic impact. I know that traffic impact is section 24 of chapter 125, whereas drainage impact is section 20. Now, drainage impact is a little more complex in terms of language. It's a little more specific than the traffic impact study, wherein the traffic impact study is based on the number of vehicles that are inside of a subdivision or projected to be inside a subdivision and what those peak hour trips will be. You know, that's 6 to 8:30 in the morning and 4:30 to 6:30 in the afternoon. So what are those peak hour trips? For drainage impact, it's more specific as to both the way the construction must occur as well as what the result of that construction will be. In fact, it's a little tough for me to go into all of the details with regard to drainage impact, but some of the main points that they bring up at the beginning of the section and then get into. So what they have is certain requirements as per whether or not, you can even build the subdivision. And then from there, once you meet those criteria, you can submit a drainage impact study, which has several sections and several layers to it. If you really want to get down on those juicy bits, we copied the whole law at the end of the discussion on our website, www.livingstonparishnews.com/news. It is currently live if you want to check that out. But some of the main things that are discussed in the beginning of that ordinance are really, either subsurface drainage or ditch drainage. There's a lot of discussion right now at the parish council level as to whether or not they should let people with open ditch drainage go to subsurface. In some cases, they have provided waivers for folks who had people get subsurface drainage on either side of their property, causing everything to pool up right in their ditch. So they have provided waivers for those folks so they can install subsurface drainage and be, I guess you can say, what's the word I'm looking for? Congruent with the rest of the subdivision. However, what they're trying to do with this ordinance is any new subdivisions all have to come the same way. Either you're looking at subsurface drainage or ditch drainage, and then they talk about certain things like retention and impervious surface. If you don't know what impervious surface is, basically that's anything that cannot hold water. It's streets, homes, concrete, concrete drainage like culverts and box culverts and that sort of thing. Excuse me. So there's a lot of things that go into the drainage impact study. It's very specific. Again, if a subdivision does not pass the drainage impact study or the traffic impact study, they must deal with the parish, as we learned through the premier concrete issue. So any issue that comes through a development permit process, anything like that, once the council has approved the preliminary plat, then any problems, any issues have to be solved by the parish itself, not by the council. So the council found that out as they went through that premier concrete issue. In most cases, the drainage impact study and the traffic impact study do not come with the preliminary plat. They usually come in phase 3 of the development, and they're dealing directly with the parish's engineers, specific engineers for these. So that would be the parish engineers and outside third-party engineers specific to the project, as well as the parish itself, like the planning director and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of things that go into this, but there is some leeway built into these ordinances. But again, as long as what this comes back to, and I'll explain, what this comes back to is that if the developers ask for no waivers and they pass their drainage impact and traffic impact study, there's not a whole lot the parish or the parish council can do to stop or try to adjust. There's some things that the developers will work with the parish on. If they say, well, gravity drainage said we need for you to move your outflow from your retention pond from here to here to be in line with what we're trying to do with the district, more often than not, the developer will say, okay, we can do that. But usually, much like how 18-foot wide roads do not ding a traffic impact study, where an outflow is from a retention pond doesn't necessarily deal with, I guess you can say, stormwater runoff, detention, and drainage. They won't ding people for that, but they hope that they'll work with them. Now, where that comes back to is two things. One, there was a meeting of citizens last week discussing trying to stop a new development coming up on the corner of Dunn Road and Lockhart Road. Now, that, I guess you can say, that subdivision is going to be a little complicated. They're building a roundabout there at Dunn and Lockhart. It's going to be right there on the corner. They're supposed to be putting people out on Lockhart. There's a lot of questions that are going in here. One of which is that they're trying to put together a subdivision where homes are coming on every third acre. So that's 1/3 of an acre. Not every every house gets 3 acres. No, every house gets about 1/3 of an acre. And there's going to be about 70 homes. So you can kind of do the math on that one. What that leads into is there's a planning meeting tomorrow night. It starts at 4 p.m. for the parish. and it is, excuse me, I'm sorry, that one starts at 6 p.m. There's something else tomorrow at 4 p.m. That is the appellate board for the city of Denham Springs. Tomorrow night at 6, the planning board meets at the parish, and they will be discussing 5 subdivisions, including the one at Dunn and Lockhart. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. I mean, of course, they are governed by the same issues, which is the waivers and the impact studies, as the parish council. So it'll be interesting to see what that commission goes through in terms of dealing with these 5 new subdivisions. And I mean, that's just 5. Of course, they've approved many this year. We're currently looking for how many new subdivisions have been approved for the 2019 year. We're hoping to run that out after the first of the year. This will be the last planning meeting of the year, of course. So this will be the final approval for those things. Anyway, I have talked a lot about those things. So please remember that there's a lot that goes into subdivision development, but the problem is that once you come to the end of that sidewalk, there's not much further the parish and the parish council and the parish itself can go. Of course, they have suffered a lawsuit loss in the past, trying to just stop a subdivision that they believe, that would be the parish council trying to stop a subdivision they believe was out of bounds in terms of what they wanted to present, but they had asked for no waivers, passed their impact studies, so they couldn't stop them. They found that out the hard way. Moving into sports, Walker girls continue to roll with a win over HL Bourgeois. French Settlements Martin, the Lady Martin, scored her 2,000th point. I'm not sure how you say that. Her 2,000th point against False River, so congratulations to her, Miss Dana Martin. Excuse me. Southeastern is traveling to Montana for playoff football. Had a wild ending to their win over Villanova and will be moving on. Of course, traveling to Montana this time of year, it's going to be cold, so they're going to have to get used to that. A lot of folks are saying, well, it's cold outside. It's a lot colder in Montana. Montana is a very cold place. So they'll be trying to get used to that, but they are soaking up a lot of the playoff atmosphere on campus and here locally as folks support those Lions. The Coca-Cola Caravan, which is the giant 18-wheeler that brings Santa around the country, hit the Denham Springs Walmart on Sunday. It was kind of an interesting event. Didn't really find out about it here at the news until about Saturday, but we tried to get out there. They did have a good crowd, so it was interesting to have that national brand show up at the Denham Springs Walmart. The Denham Springs High School DECA Club will be presenting a show, Elf. That's the Will Ferrell version. They'll be showing it on the big screen in the field next to the Denham Springs Freshman High on Friday, December 13th. It is a paid show. All the entry fees and concession fees will go towards muscular dystrophy and the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So thank you, DECA, for that. Again, that will be Friday, December 13th at 6. The Winter Wonderland festivities and festival will begin with food and a giant display of those ceramic town pieces that is at St. Joseph's Catholic Church in French Settlement. It'll be Sunday, December 8th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's a giant show. There's tons of things to see. Very, very Christmas. Very Christmas. A lot. If you've never seen them, there's this little ceramic buildings. They're about this big. For those of you listening, it's about 1.5 feet wide, and they're usually about 8 to 12 inches tall. And, you know, they put them all together in the scene of like a little mountain town. And there's tons of food, tons of fun, a lot of fellowship. Sunday, December 8th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Please check that out in French Settlement. It's always a fun event. One last time with your traffic. Again, it is cold outside, as we mentioned. It's 31 degrees. People moving slow in the cold weather. Intermittent traffic. It's one of those days where you're going to get going and then stop, get going and then stop. Traffic's going to trick you. And those delays are from the 10-12 split on I-12 westbound all the way back to Jubin Road. So it's a tough road this morning. Delays starting to begin at 4-H Club Road, River Road, and 190 in Denham Springs. Minor delays on 64 heading into Central. Those delays in and around the high schools are starting to dissipate as folks have dropped their kids off to school and are now getting into that traffic flow. One last time, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you joining us this morning for the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. We, of course, upload these to www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast. We also have long-form podcasts there as well on individual topics if you are so inclined. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We have an app, and we, of course, have our website, www.livingstonparishnews.com. Thanks again for joining us this morning on a Tuesday, very chilly Tuesday morning. We will be back tomorrow in the booth to have a little special Hump Day show, and we will be talking about Parish Council coming up this Thursday with a lot going on in terms of the budget. So stay tuned for that. We hope you stay warm and have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.